They say money can buy silence, but it can't buy class. Conrad Sterling, a billionaire real estate mogul, walked into the most exclusive gala in New York City thinking he owned the world. He looked at the waitress serving his champagne and saw nothing but a servant. He thought he could humiliate her in Mandarin, a language he was sure she wouldn't understand, to impress his foreign investors. He was wrong. Dead wrong. He didn't know that the woman pouring his wine wasn't just a waitress, and by the time she opened her mouth to reply, it was already too late for him to run. The grand ballroom of the Pierre Hotel in Manhattan hummed with a specific frequency, the low, vibrating purr of ungodly amounts of money. It was the annual Blackwood Charity Gala, an event where a single ticket cost more than most people earned in a year. Crystal chandeliers, heavy with history, cast a golden glow over men in bespoke Italian suits and women dripping in diamonds that had their own security details. Audrey Davis adjusted the heavy silver tray balanced on her left hand. Her wrist ached, a sharp, thrumming pain that radiated up to her elbow, but her face remained a mask of polite indifference. She was 24, with messy brown hair tucked severely under a black cap, and a uniform that was a size too big, swallowing her slender frame. To the people in this room, she was furniture. She was less than furniture. She was the mechanism by which champagne appeared and empty glasses disappeared. "Champagne, sir?" Audrey asked, her voice soft, keeping her eyes lowered as per the agency's strict instructions. The man she addressed didn't even look at her. He was busy laughing at a joke made by a shorter, balding man next to him. This was Conrad Sterling. At 32, Conrad was the golden boy of New York real estate. He was handsome in a predatory way, with slicked-back dark hair and eyes that assessed the value of everything they touched, and found most things wanting. He had just closed a deal to acquire the historic Kensington block, displacing 300 families, and he was currently the most talked-about shark in the city. "Conrad, you simply must tell us about the acquisition," the balding man said, reaching for a glass from Audrey's tray without acknowledging her existence. Conrad grinned, swirling his drink. "It was child's play, Arthur. The owners were desperate. I smelled blood in the water and offered them 60 cents on the dollar. They thanked me for robbing them." The circle of sycophants laughed. Audrey felt a cold knot tighten in her stomach. She knew the Kensington block. She volunteered at the community center there on weekends. She knew the families he was joking about. Mrs. Higgins, who ran the bakery. The terrified, distinct lack of hope in their eyes when the eviction notices came. "Excuse me," Conrad said suddenly, his tone shifting from jovial to icy. He finally looked at Audrey, or rather, he looked at his sleeve. A single, microscopic droplet of condensation from the champagne flute had dripped onto the cuff of his charcoal Brioni suit. "You clumsy idiot!" Conrad snapped, his voice loud enough to cut through the ambient chatter of the nearest tables. Audrey froze. I apologize, sir. It was just condensation. I don't care if it was holy water," Conrad hissed, stepping into her personal space. He loomed over her, using his height to intimidate. "Do you know how much this suit costs? More than your entire life's earnings, and you're dripping tap water on it." The music in the room seemed to dip. Heads turned. Drama at a gala was a spectator sport, and Conrad Sterling was putting on a show. "I can bring a towel, sir," Audrey said, her grip on the tray tightening until her knuckles turned white. She had to keep this job. She needed the money for her tuition, or at least that's what her employment file said. "Get out of my face," Conrad sneered, waving his hand dismissively as if swatting a fly. "Send someone competent over here. God, why do they let these street rats into the ballroom?" Audrey bit the inside of her cheek, tasting copper. She bowed her head slightly, a gesture of submission that made Conrad smirk, and backed away. As she retreated toward the service shadows, she saw the floor manager, Mr. Henderson, watching her with narrowing eyes. Henderson was a man who sweated anxiety. He would fire her in a heartbeat to appease a guest like Sterling. But Audrey didn't leave the floor. She moved to the periphery, refilling her tray at a station near a heavy velvet curtain. She watched Conrad. He was now joined by a new group, 3 serious-looking men from Shanghai. These were the investors from the Tianlong Group. It was the rumor of the night. Conrad needed their capital to fund his massive skyscraper project on the ruins of the Kensington block. Audrey knew something Conrad didn't. She knew exactly who the Tianlong investors were looking for, and she knew that Conrad's arrogance was about to write a check his bank account couldn't cash. She adjusted her apron, took a deep breath, and walked back into the lion's den. The atmosphere around Conrad's circle had shifted. The laughter was gone, replaced by the serious, hushed tones of high-stakes negotiation. The 3 investors, led by a stern man named Mr. Zhao, were listening impassively as Conrad spoke. Audrey approached carefully, her timing precise. She waited for a lull in the conversation to step forward to clear the empty glasses from a side table, positioning herself right behind Conrad's left shoulder. "Mr. Zhao," Conrad was saying in English, his voice oozing charm. "The Sterling Tower will be a monument, a bridge between East and West. Your investment is safe with me. I treat my partners with the utmost respect." Mr. Zhao nodded slowly, his face unreadable. "Respect is important to us, Mr. Sterling. We value character above profit." "Character is my middle name," Conrad lied smoothly. Audrey placed a fresh napkin on the table. Conrad glanced back, irritated to see the clumsy waitress again. He turned his back to her, creating a physical barrier between her and his guests, and leaned in closer to Mr. Zhao. Then he made his mistake. Assuming the lowly American waitress was deaf to anything but English, and wanting to show off his cultural knowledge to the investors, Conrad switched to Mandarin. But it wasn't the polite business Mandarin he had likely practiced with a tutor. It was the crude, arrogant slang he picked up in backroom bars. He leaned toward his vice president, a man named Greg, and spoke in Mandarin, loud enough for the investors to hear, clearly thinking he was making a witty aside. "Kanjige fu yuan," Conrad said in Mandarin, jerking his head back toward Audrey. "Chuan de xiang chigai. Women de hui zen me hui yu zejong diji renzai chang." Look at this waitress. She dresses like a beggar. How can our meeting have this kind of low-class person present? Greg, who didn't speak Mandarin, just laughed nervously, assuming Conrad had made a joke. But the investors, Mr. Zhao and his associates, didn't laugh. Their eyes flickered to Audrey, then back to Conrad. They looked surprised, not by the joke, but by the sheer lack of decorum. Conrad, misreading their silence as confusion, doubled down. He wanted to prove his dominance. He thought mocking the help would show he was a man of high standards. He looked directly at Audrey, a cruel smile playing on his lips, and switched back to Mandarin, speaking directly to her face, confident she heard only gibberish. "Niting de dong wo shuo hua ma, Chunju," he sneered. "Do you understand what I'm saying, stupid pig?" "Sorry, sir," Audrey said in English, her voice trembling slightly. Not from fear, but from the adrenaline of the trap snapping shut. Conrad laughed, turning back to Mr. Zhao. "See? Vacant. Lights are on. Nobody's home. It's hard to get good help in New York these days. They all want handouts." He took a sip of his wine, looking incredibly pleased with himself. "Anyway, Mr. Zhao, as I was saying about the zoning permits, I have the city council in my pocket. We can bulldoze that neighborhood within the month." Audrey stood there, the tray heavy in her hands. The insult, "Stupid pig," hung in the air like a foul smell. She looked at Mr. Zhao. The older Chinese man was watching her with a curious intensity. He seemed to be waiting for something. Audrey knew Mr. Zhao. Not personally, but she knew his reputation. He was a man of honor. He hated bullies. And Conrad Sterling had just revealed himself to be the biggest bully in the room. It was time. Audrey set the tray down on the side table with a deliberate clink. The sound was sharp enough to cut through the conversation. Conrad whipped around. "What are you doing? I didn't order you to—" Audrey lifted her chin. The submissive slouch vanished. Her shoulders squared. She looked Conrad Sterling dead in the eye, her gaze piercing through his expensive facade. "Mr. Sterling," she began, her voice clear and projecting slightly, drawing the attention of the nearby tables. Then she switched. "Rugo ni xiang yaoyong zhongwen hurubo, qingji shaoyong qi zhunke yidian." If you want to insult me in Mandarin, please at least use accurate vocabulary. The Mandarin flowed from her lips effortlessly. Perfect tone, perfect pitch, with the refined, aristocratic accent of old Beijing. The silence that followed was instant and absolute. It radiated outward from their circle, silencing the tables nearby until a hush fell over that corner of the ballroom. Conrad's glass froze halfway to his mouth. His face went slack. "What?" Audrey didn't stop. She turned to Mr. Zhao, ignoring Conrad completely. "Zhao Shensheng, wo tita de kulu daoqian. Ta shenran budong de zunzong, ye budong de ruhe zuo shengye." "Mr. Zhao, I apologize for his rudeness. He obviously understands neither respect nor how to do business." Mr. Zhao's stoic face broke into a slow, appreciative smile. He nodded at her. "Nisho de hendui, xiaojie." "You speak very correctly, miss." Conrad looked between them, panic starting to fracture his arrogance. He didn't understand what she had said to Zhao, but he knew the dynamic had shifted. The power was draining out of him and flowing into the waitress in the oversized uniform. You speak Mandarin?" Conrad stammered in English, his face flushing a deep, ugly red. "Who the hell are you?" "I'm just the beggar you were talking about," Audrey replied in English, her voice cool as ice. "But it seems this beggar understands more about your deal than you do." "You're fired!" Conrad shouted, his voice cracking. He waved frantically for the manager. Henderson, get security! This waitress is harassing my guests." Mr. Henderson, who had been watching the train wreck from afar, came sprinting over, looking pale. "Audrey, what did you do? I told you to be invisible." "She's insulting me," Conrad lied, pointing a shaking finger at her. "She's drunk. Get her out of here before I buy this hotel and fire you too." Henderson grabbed Audrey's arm roughly. "That's it. You're done. Get your things and get out. Now!" Audrey pulled her arm away from Henderson's grip with a sharp, authoritative motion that surprised the manager enough to make him let go. "Don't touch me," she said calmly. She looked back at Conrad. "You can kick me out, Mr. Sterling, but you might want to ask Mr. Zhao if he still wants to sign that contract with a man who insults women for sport." Conrad scoffed. "Mr. Zhao doesn't care about the help. He cares about profit." "Right, Mr. Zhao." He turned to the investor, expecting validation. Mr. Zhao placed his wine glass down on the table. He looked at Conrad with cold eyes. "Mr. Sterling, we are finished here." Conrad blinked. "Finished? We haven't even looked at the papers." "I do not do business with men without honor," Mr. Zhao said, in heavily accented English. He bowed slightly to Audrey, a bow of respect between equals, and began to walk away. "Wait, Mr. Zhao!" Conrad chased after him, desperate. "She's just a waitress. She's a nobody. You're walking away from millions because of a waitress." Mr. Zhao stopped and looked back. "Perhaps she is a nobody to you, but she speaks with the voice of a dragon. You speak with the voice of a rat." As the investors walked away, leaving Conrad standing amidst the ruins of his biggest deal, the billionaire turned his rage back to the only target he had left. He marched back to Audrey, his fists clenched. "You little witch," he hissed, spittle flying from his mouth. "Do you know what you just did? You cost me $50 million. I will destroy you. I will make sure you never work in this city again. I will hunt you down and bury you." Audrey didn't flinch. She just smiled. A small, dangerous smile. "You can try, Conrad," she said, using his first name for the first time. "But you should be careful. You never know who is listening." "Who are you?" he whispered, a flicker of genuine fear finally entering his eyes. Before she could answer, a new voice cut through the tension. "Is there a problem here?" Walking through the crowd was Liam Caldwell. If Conrad was the shark of New York real estate, Liam was the lion. He was the CEO of Caldwell Industries, Conrad's biggest rival, and a man known for his integrity. He was tall, with sandy blonde hair and a kindness in his eyes that was rare in this room. "Stay out of this, Caldwell," Conrad snapped. "This employee was just fired for insubordination." Liam looked at Audrey. He paused, his eyes narrowing slightly, as if he recognized something in her stance, despite the uniform and the cap. "She doesn't look like she's being insubordinate," Liam said calmly. "She looks like she's the only one maintaining her dignity." "She's done," Henderson interjected, trying to regain control. "Audrey, leave." "Now." Audrey looked at Liam, then at Conrad, and finally at Henderson. She untied her apron slowly, folding it over her arm. "I'm leaving," she said. "But keep the apron, Mr. Henderson. I won't be needing it anymore." She walked away, head held high, the sound of her cheap work shoes clicking against the marble floor. But as she pushed through the heavy double doors into the kitchen, she wasn't crying. She was calculating. She reached into her pocket and pulled out a burner phone. She dialed a number. "It's me," she said into the phone as she walked past the confused dishwashers. "Initiate Phase 2. Conrad Pierce just lost his funding. It's time to buy the debt on the Kensington block." Audrey wasn't just a waitress. Her name wasn't Audrey Davis. She was Audrey Vanderwall, and she was about to buy Conrad Sterling's entire life. The service exit of the Pierre Hotel smelled of stale cigarette smoke and damp cardboard. Audrey pushed through the heavy metal door, the cold New York night air hitting her face like a slap. She didn't flinch. She took a deep breath, inhaling the grit of the city, and let the persona of Audrey Davis, the clumsy waitress, dissolve into the darkness. She walked 2 blocks east, her posture changing with every step. The slump in her shoulders vanished. Her stride lengthened, becoming purposeful and predatory. She ducked into the back seat of a nondescript black sedan idling near a bodega. "Good evening, Miss Vanderwall," the driver said, his eyes meeting hers in the rearview mirror. It was Simon, her oldest friend and head of security. He was a mountain of a man with a scar running through his left eyebrow, a remnant of his time in special ops. "Drive, Simon," Audrey said, pulling off her black cap and shaking out her hair. It cascaded down her shoulders, thick and glossy, no longer matted with hairspray. "And get me the file on Sterling's liquidity. I want to know exactly how much cash he has on hand right now." Simon handed her a tablet as he pulled into traffic. "You poked the bear tonight, Audrey." Henderson called the agency. "You're blacklisted from every luxury hotel in Manhattan." Audrey scrolled through the data on the screen, her face illuminated by the blue light. "Good. I was getting tired of the uniform anyway. Did you record the audio? Crystal clear, Simon replied. The microphone in your collar picked up everything. We have Sterling insulting the Tianlong investors in 4K audio fidelity. If we leak this to the press, his stock drops 10% overnight. No, Audrey said sharply. Not yet. A stock drop is a slap on the wrist. I don't want to slap him, Simon. I want to evict him. She looked out the window as the city blurred by. Most people knew the name Vanderwall. It was etched into the cornerstones of libraries and hospitals across the East Coast. But almost no one knew the face of the current heir. After her parents died in a suspicious plane crash when she was 12, her grandfather had hidden her away in Swiss boarding schools, terrified that the same corporate sharks who killed her parents would come for her. She had returned to New York 6 months ago as a ghost. To the public, Audrey Vanderwall was a reclusive heiress who lived in Europe. In reality, she was here, working minimum-wage jobs, infiltrating the inner circles of the men who thought they owned the city. Conrad Sterling was the first target. Why him, Audrey? Simon asked quietly, navigating the car toward a private underground garage in Tribeca. There are bigger fish. Because of the Kensington block, Audrey murmured, her finger hovering over a photo of an elderly woman on her tablet. Mrs. Higgins, the bakery owner. My mother grew up on that block before she met my father. She bought her first painting from an artist on that corner. Conrad wants to tear it down to build a monument to his own ego. He called the residents rats. Today he learned that rats can bite. The car stopped in the subterranean garage of a converted industrial loft. This was the headquarters of Vanderwall Holdings, a firm that officially didn't exist on public records, hidden behind layers of shell companies. Audrey stepped out of the car and into the private elevator. As the doors closed, she stripped off the oversized waitress uniform, revealing a sleek, tailored silk blouse and trousers underneath. She put on her glasses, thick-rimmed, severe frames that changed the shape of her face entirely. When the elevator doors opened into the penthouse, the transformation was complete. The waitress was dead. The CEO had arrived. "Status report," she commanded, walking into a room wall-to-wall with monitors. A young woman named Sarah, her chief analyst, spun around in her chair. "It's chaos in Sterling's camp. The Tianlong Group just issued a formal statement withdrawing from the deal due to cultural incompatibilities. Conrad is hemorrhaging money. He has a $40 million loan payment due to the National Bank next Friday. Without the Chinese investment, he can't make the payment." Audrey smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "He'll look for a bridge loan. He's desperate. He'll go to the sharks." "He already has," Sarah said, pulling up an email chain on the main screen. 10 minutes ago, his CFO sent a desperate inquiry to Phoenix Capital asking for an emergency meeting. Audrey walked to the window, looking out at the skyline where Conrad's half-finished towers stood like skeletal fingers. Phoenix Capital was her. "Grant him the meeting," Audrey said softly. "Tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. sharp. Tell him the managing partner will see him personally." "You're going to face him?" Simon asked, stepping into the room. "He'll recognize you." Audrey turned, the city lights reflecting in her glasses. "No, he won't. He never looked at the waitress, Simon. He looked through her. To him, the waitress was a prop. He won't see Audrey Davis tomorrow. He'll see the woman who holds his life in her hands. And by the time he realizes they are the same person, I'll own the shirt off his back." The next morning, Conrad Sterling looked like a man who had slept in a tumble dryer. His eyes were bloodshot, and his suit, usually immaculate, looked slightly rumpled. He paced the waiting room of Phoenix Capital, a sleek, intimidating office on the 40th floor of a midtown skyscraper. "Stop pacing, Conrad. You're making me nauseous," hissed Greg, his vice president. "Shut up, Greg," Conrad snapped. "Do you know what happens if we don't get this money? The bank seizes the Kensington site. The press finds out I'm insolvent. I lose the board seat. I lose everything." "Why did you have to insult the Chinese investors?" Greg moaned, head in his hands. "I didn't know the waitress was a linguistic genius," Conrad shouted, causing the receptionist to look up sharply. Conrad lowered his voice. "It was a set-up, I know it. That girl, she was a plant. Caldwell sent her. I bet he's laughing his head off right now." The heavy oak double doors opened. A severe-looking assistant with a clipboard stepped out. "Mr. Sterling, the managing director is ready for you." Conrad straightened his tie, plastered on his best winning smile, and marched inside. The boardroom was vast, dominated by a long table made of black obsidian. At the far end, with her back to the window, sat a woman. She was reading a file, her head down. She wore a sharp white power suit that cost more than a car. Her hair was pulled back in a tight, intricate bun. "Good morning," Conrad boomed, turning on the charm. "Thank you for seeing us on such short notice. I assume you've heard of the Sterling Group's impressive portfolio." The woman didn't look up immediately. She turned a page slowly. The silence stretched, uncomfortable and heavy. "We are looking for a short-term liquidity injection," Greg added nervously. 50 million. We can offer 20% interest." 20%, the woman repeated. Her voice was low, authoritative, and terrifyingly familiar. But Conrad couldn't place it. It lacked the subservient tremble of the waitress. This was the voice of a monarch. Finally she looked up. Conrad blinked. He saw a beautiful, severe woman with thick glasses and cold, calculating eyes. He felt a strange flicker of déjà vu, but he dismissed it instantly. This woman radiated power. The waitress was a beggar. They couldn't be the same species, let alone the same person. "The interest rate is irrelevant, Mr. Sterling," she said, closing the file. "I'm looking at your assets, specifically the Kensington block. You have it leveraged to the hilt." "It's a gold mine," Conrad insisted, leaning over the table. "Once we evict the current tenants and bulldoze those rotting brownstones, the land value triples. We have the permits." "Do you?" Audrey asked. She slid a piece of paper across the black table. "This morning, the City Historic Preservation Society filed an injunction to halt demolition. It seems they found evidence that the bakery on the corner has historical significance." Conrad's face went pale. "That's impossible. I paid off I spoke to the council." "Bribery is a messy business, Conrad," Audrey said, using his first name with a casual disrespect that made him flinch, "especially when you run out of money to pay the bribes." "Who are you?" Conrad whispered, the sweat starting to bead on his forehead. "How do you know this?" "I make it my business to know where my money is going," Audrey said. She stood up. She wasn't wearing the clunky orthopedic shoes of a waitress anymore. She was wearing 4-inch stilettos that made her tower over the table. "I will give you the money," she stated. Conrad let out a breath he didn't know he was holding. "Thank God. You won't regret this." "On one condition," Audrey cut him off. She pressed a button on the intercom. "Sarah, bring in the contract." The door opened, and Sarah walked in, placing a thick document in front of Conrad. "This isn't a loan agreement," Audrey said, her eyes locking onto his. "It's a transfer of deed. Phoenix Capital will pay off your debt to the National Bank. In exchange, you sign over full ownership of the Kensington block to us, today." "What?" Conrad laughed, a high-pitched, hysterical sound. "You're crazy. That land is the crown jewel of my empire. I'm not selling it to you for debt relief." Then you default on Friday, Audrey said simply, sitting back down. The bank seizes it anyway. They sell it at auction for pennies. You go bankrupt. Your reputation is destroyed. You'll be lucky to get a job as a waiter. The word hung in the air. Conrad flinched as if she'd slapped him. You're trying to steal it from me, Conrad snarled. I'm offering you a life raft, Mr. Sterling. It's a small raft. It won't save your dignity, but it will keep you from drowning. She checked her watch. A platinum Patek Philippe. You have 5 minutes to decide. After that, the offer expires, and I call the National Bank to tell them you're insolvent. Conrad looked at Greg. Greg looked at the floor. They both knew they were cornered. Fine, Conrad spat, grabbing a pen. Give me the damn paper. But know this. Once I get back on my feet, I will find out who you really are, and I will burn this company to the ground. Audrey watched him sign with a calm, detached expression. I look forward to it. As Conrad stormed out of the office, defeated and furious, Audrey didn't celebrate. She picked up the phone. Simon, she said, we have the deed. Secure the Kensington block. Tell Mrs. Higgins her bakery is safe, and send a security detail to the community centre. Conrad is going to lash out when he realizes he's been played. She hung up and walked to the window. She had won the battle, but the war was just starting. Down on the street below, a man was watching the building. Liam Caldwell sat in his car, a file open on the passenger seat. It was a dossier on Audrey Davis. It was empty. No birth certificate, no tax records, no address. The woman didn't exist. Who are you? Liam muttered to himself, watching the light in the penthouse window. He had seen Conrad Sterling storm out of the building, looking like a beaten dog. Liam knew Phoenix Capital operated out of that penthouse. He picked up his phone. Get me a meeting with the head of Phoenix Capital. I don't care how long the waitlist is. I want to meet her. He didn't know he had already met her, and he didn't know that she was the only woman in New York who might be more dangerous than he was. 3 days after the acquisition of the Kensington block, Audrey sat in her office at Phoenix Capital, staring at a chessboard she kept on her desk. She was playing against herself. White pieces on one side, black on the other. Currently the White King, Conrad, was cornered, stripped of his bishops and knights. But the game wasn't over. Mr. Caldwell is here, Sarah announced over the intercom. Audrey stiffened. Liam Caldwell, the lion. He wasn't like Conrad. Conrad was a bludgeon. Liam was a scalpel. If Conrad was the enemy she wanted to destroy, Liam was the variable she couldn't predict. Send him in. Liam Caldwell walked in. He didn't wear the aggressively expensive Italian suits that Conrad favoured. He wore a charcoal wool blazer and dark jeans, looking more like a university professor than a billionaire industrialist. But the way he scanned the room, noticing the exits, the cameras, the specific vintage of the whiskey on the sideboard, gave him away. Ms. Vanderwall, Liam said, extending a hand. Or do you prefer Ms. Davis? Audrey's heart hammered against her ribs, but her face remained a mask of polite confusion. She shook his hand. His grip was firm, warm, and calloused. I believe you have me confused with someone else, Mr. Caldwell. I am the managing director of Phoenix. My name is A.J. Vanderwall. Davis must be someone else. Liam smiled, a slow, knowing expression that made Audrey want to check the room for bugs. He sat down opposite her without being asked. My apologies, Liam said smoothly. I met a woman the other night at the Pierre Hotel, a waitress. She had your eyes, and your distinct intolerance for bullies. I am rarely at the Pierre, Audrey lied, pouring 2 glasses of water. And I certainly don't wait tables. Of course not, Liam agreed. though his tone suggested he didn't believe a word of it. "I'm here about the Kensington block. You snatched it right out from under Conrad's nose. It was a brutal piece of business. I admire it." "It was a rescue mission, not a hostile takeover," Audrey corrected. "Conrad was going to displace 300 families. I intend to renovate the existing structures and turn the empty lots into affordable housing." Liam raised an eyebrow. "Affordable housing? In Manhattan? That's not a business strategy, Miss Vanderwall. That's charity. Or penance." He leaned forward, his eyes locking onto hers. "Why do you care about that block? A private equity shark like you shouldn't care about a bakery run by a Mrs. Higgins." Audrey froze. She hadn't mentioned Mrs. Higgins to anyone outside her inner circle. "I do my research," Liam said softly, answering her unspoken question. "Just like you do yours. I know you've been volunteering at the Kensington Community Centre on weekends, wearing a wig, going by Audrey Davis, serving soup to the elderly." The silence in the room was deafening. Audrey realized the game had changed. Liam wasn't just guessing. He had tracked her. "What do you want, Liam?" She dropped the formal facade, her voice dropping an octave. "I want to help," Liam said, surprising her. "Conrad is down, but he's not out. He's cornered. And a cornered rat is dangerous. He's been making calls to some very unsavory people, fixers, private investigators. He knows Phoenix Capital played him, and he's obsessed with finding out who Audrey Davis is, because he blames her for the initial embarrassment." Liam stood up and walked to the chessboard on her desk. He picked up a black knight. "He's going to find out, Audrey. You can't live two lives forever. The Waitress and the CEO are on a collision course." "I can handle Conrad," Audrey said icily. "Maybe." Liam placed the knight back down. "But you don't have to do it alone. I have the construction contracts for the city. If we partner up on Kensington, he can't touch you. If you try to go it alone, he'll find a way to burn it down just to spite you." He pulled a business card from his pocket and slid it across the obsidian table. "Think about it. The Waitress has a lot of pride, but the CEO should have enough sense to accept allies." Liam turned to leave. At the door, he paused. "By the way, your Mandarin is impeccable. But your accent, it's specific to the Chaoyang district of Beijing. My grandmother grew up there. It's a small world, isn't it?" With that, he walked out, leaving Audrey staring at the closed door. She looked down at the chessboard. Liam had moved her piece. He had put her king in check. She wasn't just playing against Conrad anymore. She was playing against someone who could see right through the board. Conrad Sterling was not a man who handled failure well. He sat in the back of a dim, smoky dive bar in Hell's Kitchen, a place where nobody knew his name, and nursed his fifth scotch. His phone buzzed. It was his private investigator, a man named Roach, who charged exorbitant fees for digging up dirt that didn't technically exist. "I found something." Roach's gravelly voice came through the speaker. "It better be good," Conrad slurred. "I'm paying you to find a ghost. Who is the Waitress? Who is the CEO of Phoenix? Are they working together?" "Better," Roach said. "I tracked the license plate of the car that picked up the Waitress outside the Pierre that night. It's registered to a shell company. But the driver is a guy named Simon Kincaid, ex-Special Forces." "So?" Conrad snapped. "Rich people have security." "Yeah," Roach continued. "But here's the kicker. I've been tailing Kincaid. Today he drove the CEO of Phoenix Capital, this A.J. Vanderwall, to a meeting. Then 2 hours later, he drove the same car to the Kensington Community Centre. A girl got out, wearing a hoodie and jeans. Looks just like the Waitress." Conrad sat up straight, the alcohol fumes clearing instantly. "You're saying they know each other?" "I'm saying," Roach chuckled darkly, that I took photos with a telephoto lens. The CEO and the waitress, they have the same ear shape, the same height, the same scar on the left hand. Conrad felt a cold chill run down his spine, followed immediately by a burning, volcanic rage. "It's the same person," Conrad whispered. "She played me. She dressed up as a servant to humiliate me, then dressed up as a boss to rob me." He slammed a fist onto the table, making the glasses jump. It was the ultimate insult. He hadn't just been beaten by a rival. He had been beaten by a girl playing dress-up. She had mocked him to his face in 2 different languages. "Where is she now?" Conrad demanded. "She's at the Kensington Center," Roach said. "But you can't get to her. Kincaid is there. He's armed." "I don't need to get to her physical body," Conrad said, a cruel plan forming in his mind. "I need to kill her reputation. I need to expose her fraud to the world. If the board of Phoenix Capital finds out their CEO is running around playing Waitress and hiding her identity, they'll oust her. If the press finds out the heiress is mocking the working class by cosplaying as them, the public will eat her alive." "There's an event coming up," Roach said. "The Vanderwall Foundation Winter Gala. It's this Saturday. It's her official coming-out party to New York society. She's supposed to give a speech." Conrad smiled. It was a terrifying expression. "Perfect. Send me the photos, Roach. All of them. And get me a ticket to that gala." "It's invitation only, boss. You're blacklisted." "I don't care," Conrad shouted, ignoring the bartender's glare. "Bribe someone. Blackmail someone. Steal a ticket. Just get me in that room. I'm going to unmask Audrey Vanderwall in front of the entire city." Saturday night, the Kensington Community Center. Audrey was exhausted. She had spent the afternoon painting the walls of the daycare center, trying to clear her head. The dual life was wearing her down. Liam's words haunted her. "You can't live 2 lives forever." She walked out the back exit, wiping paint from her hands. Simon was waiting by the car. "We have a problem," Simon said grimly. "What now?" "We had a tail," Simon said, scanning the rooftops. "A guy with a camera. I spotted him too late. He was taking shots of you changing shifts." Audrey's blood ran cold. "Did he see my face?" "He saw everything, Audrey. The transition, the car. Me." Audrey leaned against the cold metal of the sedan. She closed her eyes. It was Conrad. It had to be. "He knows," she whispered. "We should cancel the gala," Simon suggested. "Go to the safe house in Zurich for a while until the heat dies down." "No." Audrey opened her eyes. They were hard as diamonds. "If I run now, he wins. He takes the narrative. He'll spin it that I'm a fraud, a liar. He'll use it to sue for the Kensington deed back." She climbed into the car. "We go to the gala, Simon, and we prepare for war. If Conrad wants a show, I'll give him a show. But he's forgetting one thing." "What's that?" Simon asked, starting the engine. "He thinks he's unmasking a waitress," Audrey said, checking her reflection in the rearview mirror. "He doesn't realize he's trapping himself in a room with a predator." She pulled out her phone and dialed a number she swore she would never call. "Liam?" she said, when the line connected. "Audrey?" His voice was calm, unsurprised. "I was wondering when you'd call." "You said you wanted to be an ally," Audrey said, her voice trembling slightly before steadying. "Prove it. I need you at the Winter Gala. Conrad is coming for me." "I know," Liam replied. "I bought the ticket for him." Audrey blinked. "What?" "Trust me," Liam said. "Let him come. Let him think he has the upper hand. When he strikes, we'll be ready." The line went dead. Audrey stared at the phone. Was Liam helping her? Or was he setting up the grandest stage of all for her destruction? There was no turning back now. The curtain was about to rise. The grand ballroom of the Plaza Hotel was a sea of velvet, silk, and old money. This was the Vanderwall Winter Gala, the most exclusive event of the season. For decades, the Vanderwall family had been a silent pillar of New York society, powerful, invisible, and immensely wealthy. Tonight was the night the heir, A.J. Vanderwall, would officially step into the light. Audrey stood at the top of the marble staircase. She wore a gown of midnight blue that shimmered like a starry sky, her hair cascading in loose waves, diamonds glittering at her throat. She looked every inch the billionaire CEO. But beneath the silk, her heart was racing. She scanned the crowd below. She saw the mayor, tech moguls, and A-list celebrities, and near the back, standing in the shadows of a pillar, she saw Liam Caldwell. He raised a glass to her, his expression unreadable. "Ladies and gentlemen," the announcer's voice boomed, "please welcome the chairwoman of Vanderwall Holdings and Phoenix Capital, Ms. Audrey Vanderwall." Applause broke out, polite and rhythmic. Audrey began her descent. She had rehearsed this speech 1,000 times. She would talk about charity, legacy, and the future. But as she reached the microphone at the podium, the heavy double doors at the back of the room banged open. The sound was like a gunshot. The music stopped. The applause died. Conrad Sterling marched into the room. He looked manic, his tie slightly askew, his eyes wide with a feverish intensity. He was holding a large manila envelope. Security guards moved to intercept him, but Conrad shouted, his voice echoing off the high ceilings. "Don't touch me! I have a ticket! I have a right to be here!" He waved the invite Liam had secured for him. He pushed past a stunned waiter and marched toward the stage. "Stop the applause! Stop the charade! You're all clapping for a fraud!" A murmur of shock rippled through the crowd. Audrey stood freezing at the podium, her grip tightening on the wood. "Here it comes." "Conrad," Audrey said into the microphone, her voice amplified and calm, "you are making a scene. Please leave." "I'm not leaving until they know the truth," Conrad yelled, stopping at the base of the stage. He turned to the crowd, pointing an accusing finger at Audrey. "You think she is some brilliant business prodigy? You think she's refined? She's a liar. She likes to play dress-up." He ripped open the envelope and scattered photographs onto the front tables. "Look at them! Look!" Conrad screamed. "That's her! That's your precious Audrey Vanderwall, wearing a maid's uniform, scrubbing floors, serving drinks. She puts on a costume and spies on us. She mocks the working class by pretending to be one of them for kicks." The guests nearest the stage picked up the photos. They showed Audrey in her oversized uniform, taking out trash, serving soup, looking exhausted and disheveled. "She's a sociopath," Conrad continued, sensing the crowd's confusion. "She tricked me. She served me champagne, waited for me to slip up, and then stole my company. She's not a CEO, she's a con artist." The room was silent. All eyes turned to Audrey. The accusation was damaging. In this world, eccentricity was tolerated, but deception was not. If they believed she was mocking the poor or spying on her peers for sport, her reputation would be shattered. Conrad grinned, panting heavily. He had won. He saw the doubt in their eyes. Audrey looked at the photos scattered on the floor. Then she looked at Liam. He gave her a barely perceptible nod. Audrey leaned into the microphone. She didn't deny it. She didn't call security. "You're right, Conrad," she said softly. The room gasped. Conrad's grin widened. "I was a waitress," Audrey continued, her voice gaining strength. "I was a dishwasher. I was a cleaner. For the last 6 months, I have worked in every hotel and restaurant my family invests in." She stepped out from behind the podium, walking to the edge of the stage, looking down at Conrad. "But I didn't do it to mock anyone. And I certainly didn't do it for kicks. I did it because my grandfather taught me that you cannot lead people if you do not understand their labor. You cannot own a building if you don't know the name of the person who mops its floors. The silence in the room shifted. It wasn't shocked anymore. It was listening. I wanted to know who I was doing business with, Audrey said, her eyes sweeping the room. When you sit in a boardroom, everyone lies to you. Everyone kisses your ring. But when you are a waitress, when you are invisible, that is when people show you who they really are. She locked eyes with Conrad. And you, Conrad, you showed me exactly who you are. You're spinning it, Conrad shouted, desperate now. You're a spy. I saw you insult a woman because she spilled a drop of water, Audrey said, her voice turning hard. I saw you call the residents of Kensington rats, and I heard you speak Mandarin. Conrad froze. You wanted to impress Mr. Zhao, Audrey said. So you insulted the stupid waitress in a language you thought she couldn't understand. Do you remember what you said, Conrad? Shut up, Conrad hissed. You called me a pig, Audrey said clearly. You said I was too low class to breathe the same air as you. She signaled to the back of the room. Liam? Liam Caldwell stepped forward. He pulled a small remote from his pocket and pointed it at the massive projection screen behind the stage, the screen meant for the charity presentation. The screen flickered to life. It was a video, grainy, but the audio was crystal clear. It was the recording from Simon's collar cam. Conrad's voice boomed through the speakers, speaking broken, arrogant Mandarin. Look at this waitress. Do you understand what I'm saying, stupid pig? The crowd gasped. The investors from the Tianlong group were not there, but their partners were. The mayor was there. The press was there. Then the video showed Audrey's response. Perfect, elegant Mandarin, defending her dignity and shaming him. The video ended. The lights came up. Conrad looked around. He saw disgust on every face. He saw the mayor whispering to the police commissioner. He saw his remaining business partners turning their backs. She trapped me, Conrad whispered, backing away. You trapped yourself, Audrey said from the stage. I just turned on the lights. This is illegal, Conrad screamed, losing control completely. I'll sue you. I'll kill you. He lunged toward the stage, blindly, foolishly. Before he could take 2 steps, a heavy hand clamped onto his shoulder. It was Simon. Mr. Sterling, Simon said, his voice like grinding rocks. We have a trespass order, and I believe you just threatened the life of a public figure in front of the police commissioner. 2 uniformed officers stepped forward, flanking Simon. Get your hands off me, Conrad shrieked as they dragged him backward. I am Conrad Sterling. I own this city. You own nothing, Audrey said, her voice final. The bank seized your penthouse this morning. You are bankrupt, Conrad. As they dragged him out, kicking and screaming, the ballroom remained deadly silent. Audrey stood alone on the stage. She felt exposed, vulnerable. She had revealed her secret. She waited for the judgment. Then a slow clapping started. It was Liam. He was standing in the center of the room, clapping slowly, deliberately. Then Mrs. Higgins, the bakery owner who Audrey had invited as a special guest, stood up and clapped. Then the mayor. Then the tech moguls. Within seconds, the room erupted in a standing ovation. They weren't clapping for the billionaire heiress in the blue dress. They were clapping for the waitress who had stood up to a bully. Audrey let out a breath, her knees weak. She looked at Liam, and for the first time, she offered him a genuine, unguarded smile. 2 weeks later, the morning sun hit the newly renovated Kensington Community Centre. The scaffolding was down, the bakery was open, the smell of fresh bread wafting down the street. Audrey sat on a bench in the park across the street. She was wearing jeans and a sweater. No wig, no uniform, just Audrey. "Is this seat taken?" Liam walked up, holding 2 paper cups of coffee. "Depends," Audrey said, taking the coffee. "Are you here to try and buy the block again?" "No." Liam sat down next to her. "I think you have that handled. I'm here to offer you a job." Audrey laughed. "I have a job. I own the company." "I know," Liam smiled. "I meant a partnership. The city is putting out a bid for the waterfront redevelopment. It's a massive project, too big for one firm. I need someone who understands the details, someone who isn't afraid to get their hands dirty." Audrey sipped her coffee, looking at him over the rim of the cup. "You knew, didn't you? Before the gala. You bought him the ticket so he would hang himself." "I knew he wouldn't stop until he thought he had won," Liam admitted. "Men like Conrad don't learn from mercy. They only learn from defeat. I just gave him the stage." He pulled a small travel chess set out of his bag and placed it on the bench between them. "So," Liam said, setting up the pieces. "Partners?" Audrey looked at the board. She picked up the white queen. "Partners," she said. "But I get to be white. I make the first move." Liam grinned. "I wouldn't have it any other way." As they began to play, the sounds of the city surrounded them. Taxis honking, children playing, the hum of life. Audrey Vanderwall had spent her life hiding, afraid that her wealth made her a target. But she realized now that her true power wasn't her money. It was her ability to see the world from the bottom up. She moved her pawn forward. The game was just beginning. What a satisfying end for Conrad Sterling. He thought his money gave him the right to crush the weak, but he learned the hard way that true power comes from character, not a bank account. Audrey proved that dignity and intelligence are worth far more than an expensive suit. It's a powerful reminder that you should never judge a book by its cover, or a waitress by her uniform, because you never know who is truly holding the cards. If this story of karmic justice gave you chills, please hit that like button right now. It really helps support the channel and tells us you want more stories like this. What did you think of Liam's decision to help Audrey? Was he right to let Conrad humiliate himself publicly, or was it too cruel? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a new upload. We have plenty more sagas of hidden identities, billionaire romances, and sweet revenge coming your way. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you in the next story.